Breaking the Silence is a podcast that dives into the intricate and often challenging topics of grief and loss within relationships. Through insightful discussions, the podcast aims to explore how pain can be transformed into purpose, leading to healing and growth. By addressing themes such as inner child work and the journey towards feeling alive once more, this podcast offers a beacon of hope for those navigating difficult emotions. Ultimately, Breaking the Silence aims to guide listeners towards moving forward and embracing all the blessings that life has in store as they embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual fulfillment. I'm your guide through this journey, Renee Wallace, and I invite you to join me as we break the silence surrounding grief and loss, transforming pain into purpose and finding hope in the healing power of storytelling. Welcome, everyone, to Breaking the Silence. I have my beautiful friend, Gina, here with me today, and we actually met in California last year, and we were there for a workshop and training and ended up staying in the same house. And it was just such a sweet time there was 4 ladies in that one house, and we had some really amazing conversations. I feel like we stayed up late. I feel like a couple nights drinking some wine and having conversation, but the conversations were just really good, deep, and just real talk. I loved it. I loved spending that time with you and getting to know you. And even in what I heard there, I knew that you had a story that needed to be shared and shared with the world and my audience. And so that's why I asked you to be on here. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on here with me. And I would love for you so you decided to become a life coach, correct?
Yes.
And you felt called to work with people that have walked through divorce, right?
Yes.
I would love for you to just sort of share your journey of what even had you decide to take that path or know that that's where you were meant to go.
Well, I have been through divorce, and I've been through divorce 3 times.
Okay.
And in that, it's always been such a source of shame for me. So
Right.
I never wanted to tell my story.
Mm,
And I love stories. I love people's stories. When we stayed up, I wanted to know everything about you. Like I love people's stories, but there was so much shame
hmm
around what I felt was my own story that I didn't want to tell it because people I felt like really looked down on that. And some people do. I mean, let's face it, some people do. It is I've heard people will say, oh, not necessarily talking about me, but oh, she's been divorced or no, usually women. You don't hear
hmm
as much about that with men, but you know, usually they'll say, oh, she's been divorced however many times, whatever, once, twice, 3 times seems excessive. And actually I when I started doing this, I actually looked up the statistics on divorce and in first, second, and third marriages. And so it's very interesting because in first marriages, the divorce rate's 40 to 50%.
Okay.
Second marriages, it jumps up to 60 to 67%. And in third marriages, it's 73 to 74% go through a divorce. I know. And I was on number 4. Now we've been married, this year will be 20 years. But when I started this coaching, we were actually in couples counseling, and we had done couples counseling a lot over the years, kind of more early on, but things just were difficult and such a struggle. And you bring in, we each had kids. We didn't have kids together, but we each had kids, and had very different philosophies on how to raise kids.
hmm
And I think that is a big struggle for people. So we were actually in couples counseling when I started doing the 180 just going through the coaching program, not the certification, but just being coached.
Right.
Uh, and so as you know, it's all about
Right.
healing and not dealing. And we were sitting in our couples counseling, and the counselor said to me about an issue that we didn't agree on. She said, "Well, you're just going to have to deal with it." And I thought,
Mm,
but I don't think I can just deal with that. And and that was our last session. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not working. I just don't want to do this anymore. And I said to my husband, I said, I'm not going to ask you to do another thing, not go to another therapist, not read a book, not what, nothing. Where we are is where we are. I didn't really want to go through another divorce, but I was just done
right.
I was done trying to figure out how to fix him. And I think he
Mm,
was done trying to figure out how to fix me. And it really was very like, that's what we do, right?
we
And he had
do.
said that one time, when we were going to therapy, he just wanted them to figure out, help him fix me. And I want them to help me fix him.
Mm-hmm.
And going through the coaching, which was hard because you really have to look at yourself and you really have to own your own story.
Right.
And while I was going through that, he really noticed a big difference in me and kind of started taking note, like, you're different, and how I was responding and how I was reacting. And so I said to him, well, she actually does couples coaching. And I think the word coaching for him as opposed to counseling. Now, mind
Mm-hmm.
you, I said, I'm not ever asking you to do another thing ever again. He said, I would be interested in that.
Wow.
So we did about six months of coaching with her, and it was really hard and really, really challenging, but so good. And as I was going through that and just seeing the change in me, the change in him, the change in other people, I thought, I love this. I had wanted to be a therapist. I had wanted to do marriage and family therapy at one point, and it just never was the right time. And I thought, this is a way that I can really, I feel like, help people, help women who have been through this, figure out how to come out on the other side stronger, whether you want another relationship or not, but come out stronger. And if you do, be able to then attract that person that's going to meet you where you're at. Because I think we do that. We attract people where we're at.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
if we're not in a great place, we're going to attract somebody that's also maybe not in a great place. Maybe they're a wonderful person, but it's not necessarily a great match. And I think in addition to that, then really trying to help people work through that co-parenting, because co-parenting is really a challenge, not only with your ex, but also your partner. Because again,
Right.
like I said, we had very, very, very different ideas on how to parent children. And it caused just years of really a lot of disagreements, a lot of strife, a lot of hardship on our kids.
Mm,
And so I think there's a better way.
right. Yeah, I completely agree with that because I think that even when it's the original mom and dad married, it can already be a struggle too if you don't have the same parenting style, right? But when it's a different marriage and they're not biologically yours, then there is just that whole nother level of difficulty added to it, right?
Yes.
So I know I experienced that, and because my oldest daughter is from my first marriage too. And I can so relate to everything you're saying of the shame that
Mm.
comes with when you feel, because you feel like, and this is can be the story that we tell ourselves, but you feel like you failed, right?
Oh,
Like I
100%.
absolutely, yeah. Like, so from my first marriage and feeling like I failed there, and here I am now into a second marriage and bringing a daughter into that. And although I feel like for the most part, Dave was great, there definitely was conflicts and issues of like, now you've got your ex-spouse and they're still a part of the life and just all the stuff of that, just navigating that of co-parenting, and maybe things are one way with your kids together and then there's this other kid that they're allowed different yes, it's just very, very challenging.
Well, and so again, I was married very briefly I wish it was, I could say like early 20s, but I was kind of still early 20s, only for 6 months. So had the big wedding, all the things, and it lasted 6 months. There were no kids, so it was a pretty easy split.
Right.
I mean, still, and I say easy in the sense of, again, no kids, no property, no none of that, but it still does a number on your self-esteem. And and from very early on, I tended to pick people who were not faithful.
Mm.
And like starting in high school. I mean, I just that was that's who I chose, people that were not faithful. And so it's, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? All of the things that we say to ourselves over and over and over, that I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I said to myself, what's wrong with you? I would be on a yacht
Well, I'd be living my dream life right now.
somewhere.
Well, so and that, yeah, exactly. So you recognize the pattern of that you were totally picking the same type of people to reconfirm a story that you were telling
Yes,
yourself, right?
yes,
And
yes.
then, yeah, like over and over, then what is wrong with me? Why do people keep doing this to me? Why won't they love me? I'm assuming even am I
Oh
not
yeah.
worthy of being
Oh yeah.
loved? Like,
And yeah, and in my second marriage, so we got married very quickly. We met in September. We were engaged by December. And then it took a while. There was a lot of things that happened, but we got married maybe about a year later. And then pretty soon after that, my daughter was born. And we had a new house. We had this beautiful baby girl. And about 5 months into that, and really before that, he had started another relationship. I didn't know, but I knew 5 months into after she was born is when he left. And
mm,
he moved in and out 6 times in 6 months. And so I never knew what was going to happen. And I remember, and he would never like tell me that's what was happening, but you know. And I just remember one day coming home from work and pulling into my garage with my little girl in the back. And I mean, she was a baby. And I just thought, I'm just going to leave this car running and I'm going to
mm,
shut that door and I'm just going to be done with this because this is so painful. And
wow.
I just don't think I can do it. And then I heard her, and I could look back
Mm,
and see her little feet kicking. And I thought, okay, all right, get it together, right?
mm,
And somehow, through that, I mean, we ended up getting divorced, and they did end up getting married, and I also remarried, and um, but I I thought, this person's going to be in my daughter's life, and I need to get to know her. And so I remember um, I was now remarried and pregnant with my second child,
Okay.
and we met and had dinner, and it was awkward and hard, but I really liked her.
Hmm.
And she loved my daughter.
Hmm.
Now, that's hard because my daughter loved her too. And I mean, she was little still, right? But I think so often it could have been so much different. Like she could have not loved her. And then it would have
Absolutely.
been such a hard place for her to be. And when you're taking your kids somewhere where they're loved, it's very different from taking them somewhere where they're not wanted. And so
Hmm.
that just always stuck with me that, she's loved, she's well taken care of. And funny enough, next week my daughter lives in Dallas, and as does one of my boys, and then her half sister lives there also.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go out and see her, and so is her stepmom. So we're going to have dinner next
Oh, how
week,
fun.
and it really is. We got to be friends. We had a lot in common, and I love her kids. She loves my kids, and so it's just been it's how it's supposed to be. I mean, maybe
Hmm.
ultimately not how it was supposed to be, but I really think it was because I went on to have three more amazing kids that need to be here. My daughter's dad had three more amazing kids that needed to be here. And so I think it just worked out how it was supposed to work out.
Right. I think it's a beautiful thing when you can end up being friends like that, like
Mhm.
um I will for sure say, like in the beginning, we were very young. So it was messy in the beginning. I
Mhm.
mean, I got divorced very young, and I mean, you're immature anyways. And then you put that into the mix of like trying to co-parent. But same thing, like you're saying, he got remarried, and we ended up like really liking each other. She is a beautiful person and loved my daughter so well. And I'm so thankful for that. And yeah, like it's not like we like talk and keep in touch now, especially with my daughter grown. But I mean, like for
Right.
life event things, yeah, we're still see each other and talk and all the things. And like they came to Brian's funeral and they came to Dave's funeral. And so yeah, I think that's beautiful when it can be like that. So so what now? And I have to say, first of all, I want to say this here because I was just thinking about it as you were talking. You definitely have the gift for coaching and helping others. I do remember that in our conversations, like you had this beautiful way of just drawing it out and just knew the questions to ask and to make somebody like maybe that necessarily wouldn't normally want to go deeper. You had this beautiful way of doing that to where before I knew it, I'm like, blah, like sharing all this with you.
Well, thank you. I do. I love people's stories, and I think again we all have a story, and I think when we live in that shame and we
Mm,
don't tell our story, then we can't help anybody else.
right.
And I think when people see us, because I always just thought, God, my story's just dumb. It's just dumb, right? Like you see all these people that have these amazing stories of overcoming so many things. And you and I know a lot of the same people. And it's just, wow, look what she's been through. Look what he's been through. And then I thought I just like pick really bad. And so, but I think that's not true.
Mm-mm.
That's not true. I again, I look back and I wouldn't change a thing. because I have these amazing children. I have
Right.
this new little grandson. And with my husband now, like I said, we don't have kids together, and his was a very messy divorce.
Okay.
And he didn't see his girls for a long time and still is struggles with a relationship with one of them. But his oldest daughter, they've reconnected. She and I always had a bond. And when we didn't see her, it was really hard. So we kind of now have that bond. And I really did the same thing with his ex-wife at one point. Like we were friends. My husband and I worked together. And so kind of the things that had been done to me, I kind of turned around and did. And it was again a huge source of shame. Like, how did I do
Mm,
this? How did
right.
I let this happen? And so there was just so much strife in that, and really not using the kids against each other a
Okay.
lot. And
Right.
so it was a really painful time. But she has two little kids that one was born a couple months ago on my birthday, so that's really fun.
Mm.
So a little girl, and then she has a little boy that I get to take care of. She's a teacher, so I watch him during the school year. And so
Oh.
that's been just it's amazing. I mean, they say kids are great, but grandkids,
Hmm.
unbelievable,
Right.
right? I mean, they're just, I was talking to my daughter yesterday that has my little grandson, and I said, you can never explain to somebody what it's like to be a mom until you're
Right.
a mom. I said, this grandma thing is like off the charts. Like, I'm
Oh.
obsessed with this little guy. So, but it's such a beautiful thing. And I think, um, really just turning that around and again, like redefining it. What is divorce? And there's so many things that we get divorced from: jobs, friends, spouses, whatever. It encompasses a lot of things, and redefining that, and it's not the end of the world. It's not the
Right.
worst thing. And just taking it and using it to build something more beautiful.
And when we can look at it from a different perspective of it not being the end of the world and it being a part of the story that created you or other people, me, people that have walked through divorce, it's created who we are. And yeah, it's a part of our story and it's a beautiful part
Hmm.
and not something that we have to be so embarrassed or ashamed of or feel like we failed. I think that the beauty in it is when we can look and see, okay, so I made those mistakes, or not even mistakes, that's not even the right word, but we would
Choices.
choose yeah, choices and even how we show up in the marriage, maybe like if we can learn and grow from that and say, okay, maybe I didn't handle these things the best way, then that's where there's true growth and healing, right? We show up in a different way then. And it
Yes.
was for a purpose and that we had to learn those things and grow. And so,
And I love that. I've always kind of struggled with that. Everything happens for a reason,
mm-hmm,
but I love kind of switching it up a little where everything happens for a purpose. And I
mm,
do think everything happens for a purpose and everything happens for me. So it's for
absolutely.
me. And
Absolutely.
how am I learning those lessons? How am I using them to grow and move past? And sometimes it takes a while to learn the lesson, and you have
Mm-hmm.
going
And when
through.
you're in the midst of it, it might not feel like it's for you. It very well might feel like this is really against me. Like
Right.
it feels like the world is coming at me, but it truly is for you, and it all is for a purpose. I mean, like your story is something beautiful that needs to be shared because there's so many other people that are
Hmm.
feeling the shame, and you can bring a voice and light to that and say, no, that isn't the case at all, and share
Right.
the beauty of that. I'm curious to know, like, after um, you went through coaching and everything, and you and your husband are both trying to fix each other, which I think we're all so notorious for, right? Like I look back on even my marriage with Dave and like, man, like so guilty of like always trying to fix the other person instead of if I would have known then what I know now, but that's
Right.
the whole purpose, right? We learn from it. Like, wow, if I just would have looked at myself and like you, even when you did the work and the coaching with Alejandra, and being able to show up in a different way then. And do you feel like once you did that, you were able to hold space for your husband in a different way? And
Oh,
that's what he really
absolutely.
noticed, like, whoa, wait a minute, this is different.
Absolutely. Well, being able to just go and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling, and taking that responsibility for yourself,
Right, right,
right? Showing up differently, like this is how it's affecting me. This is what, and in that taking ownership of it, as opposed to you're doing this, or you're making me feel like this, or whatever it is,
right,
there are things. And it's interesting because I think sometimes people want you to worry about them or want you to be obsessing about things. And when you back off and say, that's, you need to take care of that, that's on you. It's
right,
it's a very interesting shift when now all of a sudden, not only are you taking responsibility for yourself, but you're allowing them to take responsibility for themselves. And
yes.
yeah, it makes a big difference.
And then I think that's where maybe they can maybe once you're not so concerned with what they're doing and you're just taking ownership of yourself, then all of a sudden they can also stop. Like he was, wanting to fix you and point the finger at you, like, well, you're doing this and this. And all of a sudden you can look
Exactly.
at, they can also look at themselves and be like, oh, wait a minute. Like,
Well, and I think we do that I know I did. I didn't want to deal with my own stuff. So I'm
right.
gonna fix him. I'm gonna work on
Hmm.
everybody else and keep so busy trying to do that I don't have to deal with my own stuff. And when you
And I think,
finally,
go ahead.
yeah, when you finally just stop and focus on your own healing and stop dealing with just everybody else and trying to, keep all the balls in the air. It really is, and I just turned 60 a couple months ago, and I think, gosh, I kind of wish I would have learned this 20 years ago. But
Hmm.
also, again, I'm here for a purpose. It happened for a purpose. And had it happened 20 years ago, would I be able to share what I'm sharing today?
Right. Absolutely. So again, yeah, it just comes back to a purpose of that. I mean, yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if we knew? Um, so you're working now with other women. Do you work with just women or anybody that's been through divorce or?
Anybody. I actually have a couple. So I worked with her. I started with her, and then he kind of again saw like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on with this? And I think sort of joined with the intention of like, maybe I'll see if I can help her progress along. But it's been really great. Um, Very challenging, but really, really good. And I think we've both gotten a lot out of it. So I love working with both couples
Okay.
and individuals. So yeah.
And so I know that you had mentioned, I seen about bold. What does that stand for? I would love to know.
Yeah, so it's in my divorce redefined framework. It's my four pillars. So
Okay.
bold is breaking free, so letting go of that shame and that guilt that just keeps us so stuck. And then owning your story, right? And then liberation. So, like I was saying, I turned 60 this year, and yeah, you always have a word. And I was like, I don't really have a word. And then it hit me, liberation. Like, this is the year and the decade of liberation. And I just thought, liberating so you can find your purpose, not what everybody else has wanted you to do, all the, your life, but what is now your purpose? And then designing your next chapter, whether that's with a partner or whether that's just on your own. I think we are told by society you've got to be in a relationship, and really
Mm-hmm.
we just really don't. I mean, we can
Right.
be, but we are so strong and so amazing and so powerful on our own. And I think when we're comfortable with that and we show up in that sense, then if we're meant to be with somebody, that's what we'll attract. But otherwise, I don't think we have to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that we are so conditioned, like you said, like we're supposed to be married, we're supposed to be in a relationship. And I have found like now on the other side, um, I love the independence and being on my own and being able to make my own decisions and my own choices. And not that I'm saying I would not ever want to be in a relationship, but I'm thriving on my own too, and I don't feel like I need to be defined by a relationship.
Yes.
So I think that's
Yes.
a beautiful thing.
It really is. And it's like figuring out like, I think for especially for women, we think we've got to be in this couple. And then if we're no longer the wife or we're no longer a we, then what does that mean for us?
Right.
And and you get older and like, oh, there's the options are limited, right? But I think it's not about that. It's just about really leaning into your purpose and what you're meant to do here, because we're all meant to do something. We're all
Mm,
meant to do something. And when we figure that out, and again, sometimes it's the result of a lot of, again, you don't want to say bad decisions, but just hard decisions and
right.
decisions that were not maybe at the time in our best interest, but it's all come together in such a beautiful way
Mm,
that now I just don't want anybody to ever go as long as I did living in that shame, living in that
right.
guilt. And I always joke because whenever I would go back to a reunion, I would get the award for most times married.
Mm,
And it's like I don't really want this award. When I graduated high school and they do the little superlatives, I was the most likely to succeed and best dressed. And my oldest daughter was like really proud of that best dressed one. But when, and then, 10-year reunion, I mean, I'd been divorced once, but a lot of people hadn't, right? And then
right.
by the time I was at my 20 year, I'd been divorced 3 times. So it was I said it in my 40th. I said, I'll come, but I don't need that award
I
anymore.
do not want that.
I'm good. So, but again, it's I'm not ashamed of it now either.
And I think that is beautiful there because you're right. People will stay stuck a really long time in
Mhm.
shame. And for you to put a voice to that, that it doesn't need to be that way is so beautiful. Who wants to spend our whole lives stuck in
Mhm.
shame?
No.
So if my audience would like to work with you or connect with you further, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can reach out. I have my Instagram is Gina Nichols Coaching. So
Okay.
you can reach out to me there, or I have a calendar, Gina Nichols, my website, Gina Nichols Coaching, and then book a call. So you can find me there. My website is about to be done, so I'm not sure when this will air, but
Oh,
it should be done in the next couple of weeks. So
okay.
I'm super excited about that. And then I'm on Facebook also, so DMs or messages. Yeah,
Okay. I will make sure that I put all that in the description too, in the show notes, so that people
great.
can reach out to you and connect with you. And I so appreciate you being on here with me and sharing your story so that you can help other men and women. I know a lot of people struggle with that shame of feeling like they failed in a marriage. So it's beautiful work that you are doing for sure, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking the Silence. As we conclude our time together, let us carry forward the stories we've heard, the emotions we've shared, and the connections we've forged. Remember, the journey through grief and loss is not one we walk alone. In the silence, we find solidarity. In our shared experiences, we find strength. And in our vulnerability, we find resilience. If you or someone you know is navigating the complexities of grief, know that there is support available. Reach out, lean on your community, and remember that healing is not linear. It's a journey, and you are not alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a part of this community. Until next time, may you find peace in the spaces between the silence. Please be sure to subscribe below and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect further, you can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Renee.